overview of the sales process. The beginning. The beginning, right? Every sale begins the same way. This is how it all begins. And I'm going to briefly explain this, and then I'm going to give a brief overview of the rest of it, and then we're going to go into detail of each of these things in separate videos. But I'm going to start with the beginning, and I'm going to include that in this video, and I'm going to talk about that now. So the beginning. So every single sale, it will always start like this. Say this is you, right? You're somewhere. Let's say that's them. They're somewhere. That cannot be debated. That's a fact, right? So this little squiggly line is meant to be a frequency, right? So frequency X, frequency Y. So frequency, think of a frequency as like a certain type of way you're showing up in the world. So I'm on frequency X, I'm showing up in the world in some type of way, the sum of all my thoughts and all my feelings and all my emotions and all my energy and my body language and my whole way of being in that moment is some sort of way, right? Which is frequency X, it's some sort of way. And then same for them, right? And whether this is in person or on the phone, for this particular way that I designed all this, it's a little bit more for in person, but you can apply it just as much for on the phone as well. That for them, it's the same way. When that person walks in the door, there's some sort of frequency that they're on. All their thoughts, all their emotions, all their feelings, their energy, their body language, the whole way that they're being and showing up in the world in that moment is some type of way. And before we meet them, we don't know exactly what that way is going to be, but this will always be true. This will always be true. There's never a time where that's not true. I personally prefer my method versus Jordan Belfort's because I like to draw things in pictures, and I think you know, there's been a lot of research that our minds process pictures a lot better than words. And so I feel like if we can understand stuff in pictures of what's happening, that's super helpful. So you're somewhere, they're somewhere, there's some sort of difference between where you are and they are. And that will always be true also. There's some sort of gap between frequency X and frequency Y. Now, who knows what that gap's gonna be, right? Because maybe before we met them, we don't really know. But there's gonna be a gap of rapport. And in the beginning, this is the setup. We're somewhere, there's somewhere, there's some sort of gap between us, some sort of gap in rapport, okay? This is the setup, how it starts. Beginning. It will always be that way. There will never be a time where that's not true. And that's what we want when we're creating models, right? If we create a model of sales, let's say, we're wanting to create something that's always true, right? No matter what, always true. You're always somewhere, they're always somewhere, there's always some sort of gap that needs to be closed between the two of you. So the second part is bridging that gap and forming rapport. Rapport, right? So we're here, they're here, there's some sort of gap. Once we've established that, the first thing we have to do, or we could say the second because, you know, we're saying this is the beginning, but the first thing we're really doing is closing that gap, right? We have to go from here to here, and we have to sync up with them. We have to be in rapport with them. That has to happen before anything else can happen. So that's the next step, and we're gonna have a whole video separate for that next, but I'm just giving you the outline of how everything is right now, right? So beginning, we're somewhere, there's some sort of gap. The first thing we do is we have to figure out a way to sync up with them and get on that frequency with them and be completely in rapport, right? And again, we're gonna explain how to do that. But that's the second part of the sale. There will always be this gap. We will always have to get in rapport. That will always be the next thing that needs to happen. After that, the next thing that will always happen is what I call the dance to a decision. So let's say this is us, this is them. We're on the same frequency, right? Now we're in rapport. We've bridged that gap, we're in rapport. Let's say this is them buying, right? Making the sale, you making the sale. There's this sort of dance to the sale that happens. There's this sort of process of going forward, going back, going side to side. What about this? What about over here? Oh, I don't know. Oh, I like this. There's this process, right? This process of movement towards the sale. And I'm gonna talk about in a different video. Each of these things are gonna be their own video. So beginning, that's pretty self-explanatory, so I explained it here. Rapport, this is gonna be its own video. Dance to a decision, this is gonna be its own video. So these are gonna be broken down more. But this is the process. Step one, we're somewhere, they're somewhere. First thing that happens, we have to bridge that gap and get into rapport. Once we're in rapport, there's this dance to the sale, right? There's this dance forward and back, we're moving towards it. And I'm gonna go into detail about what that's like so you know what to expect and you know how to move through that. Next thing that happens, crossing the bridge, asking for the sale. Crossing the bridge, asking for the sale. So there's this dance to the sale, right? And then you're getting to the very end. And when you get to the very end, there's like this cliff, there's this moment, and all sales have like this moment leading up to it where something's gotta happen. And that's what I call crossing the bridge. And we're gonna go into some detail about what crossing the bridge is like, how to do that, understanding the importance of timeline. You know, does that really need to happen right now? Why does that need to happen now? Details of that, right? So that's gonna be its own video. But so far we've got, we're here, they're there. Then we've got to close that gap in rapport. That'll always be the case. We got to sync up with them. Once we're synced up with them, we got to move towards the sale. There will always be this process of moving towards it. There will always be this point where you get to the end and something needs to happen, right? This kind of crossing over to the bridge where the person's nervous and you're helping them, right? The next thing that will always happen, objections, right? Right here is where the objections start to happen. Every sale will have objections unless it's a lay down sale, which is very rare. Lay down meaning they just say, yes, you know, I'll buy it. But there will always be some objections. And then the sale ends. So I'm gonna erase all this and I'm just gonna draw all this as pictures because it'll be easier to see without all the text. So you can just have the overview of like, okay, this is how this always goes. So first we have that's how it starts, right? There's us, there's them. We're somewhere, they're somewhere. We got to get in rapport with them before anything happens. There's a great line from Jim Rohn that says you have to meet people where they are before you can take them where you want to go. And so this is very important, right? So we're somewhere, they're somewhere. We realize, okay, I got to get in rapport with them. Right? So now, we're in rapport with them. That's good. There's this dance towards the sale, right? Now that we're in the rapport, we're moving towards the sale. Then we get to the end and it's sort of like there's this moment and there's these objections, right? And we have to help them pass that moment to the objections, to the other side, and then there's the sale. So this gives you the overview of it. Will always look like this. We're somewhere, they're somewhere. Get into rapport. Moving together towards the sale, moment at the end, bring them past that, sale. This will always be true. There will never be a time where something on here isn't true. And it will always be in this order and it will be true no matter what you sell. So this is very helpful to have this overview of like, okay, this is always gonna go that way. So that means I need to master how to get into rapport because until that happens, nothing else can happen. The dance towards the sale, how do we move towards it, right? Because once we're in rapport, we gotta move towards it and nothing else can happen until that happens. And then crossing the bridge, handling objections at the end, right? We've moved towards the sale. Now we're at the end, we have to be able to finish it, and then we finished it. Everything will always be that way. Good. So we talked briefly about what the beginning is. So now in this next video, we're gonna go into how do you do this? How do you come from here to here so that you can get on that same frequency and start moving towards the dance of the sail? And that's what we will do in the next video.